12 years ago, we had a normal, regular family, just like all of you. Mom and dad, 3 kids going to school, church on Sunday, catechism on Wednesday night, dinner at 6 o'clock every night, no matter what, no excuses. The kids were all doing well in school, but that was about to change dramatically. Our middle son, Matthew, was in that transition between 8th grade and high school, being a freshman. Started acting different. At first, it was what we knew was alcohol. He was drinking with friends. We did all the things that parents do, the grounding, but this continued to get worse. He continued to isolate himself. He started using Adderall from friends at school. He got involved in the judicial system. He ended up in juvie for getting too many MIPs. And there was really no place for us to get any help. We called around numerous times, unless it was court ordered or he was 18, we're sorry, there's nothing we can do for you. So that led us to reach outside of state. We ended up sending Matthew to Minnesota Teen Challenge in Minneapolis. He was there 6 months and really came home with a better attitude, was doing very well. And we had our Matthew back, and we really thought things were going to go well, and we were out of the woods. He was back in school. Little did we know that the activity, once he got back, there was no follow-up support. There were no groups here. Nobody talked about it. Nobody wanted to help us with him. He had private counseling. He went once a week. But other than that, it was still there was quite a bad stigma about the whole drinking, Adderall. And one of his friends ended up coming back. He was also sent away to Seattle, and he came back into town. And I knew this friend, was bad news. He was in a lot of trouble and was not in school, and did my best. We did our best to keep Matthew apart from him. Little did we know, 3 o'clock in the morning, he was sneaking out of the house. A lot of people say, well, where were the parents? Well, we were the parents driving around looking for our son at 3 in the morning and going to work at 7. Sometimes we found him, sometimes we didn't. And it was a continuing process. So it just was a lot of turmoil during that time. It was a very difficult time. Got through the summer. We ended up September, he was back in school. Things were okay. And one night on December 14th, we all sat down for dinner. We had a nice dinner together. All the kids were there at 6 o'clock. And Larry and I went and sat in the living room for a minute, and I saw this car go by. And I knew the car to be the friend that we didn't want Matt hanging around with. So immediately I ran downstairs, and Matt was gone. He had taken off through the slider in the basement and went and met this friend. So numerous phone calls back and forth. Curfew's 10 o'clock, get here now. I'm on my way, Mom. I'll be there, Mom. He called me at 9:45 and said he was on his way home. And we later found out that was a very significant time. But at 10:15, they were meeting with a dealer down on Logan and Ethel. Matt did not like needles at all, and he was injected with heroin by his friend. Matt then passed out, and the friend got scared and drove around town. He stopped at his girlfriend's house. He stopped and bought pop. They had receipts for pop. He stopped at his grandparents' house. He even stopped at our house, but wouldn't bring Matt in the house and wouldn't alert anybody. He was too afraid of getting in trouble. So he would not alert anybody that Matt was in trouble. He went back home and pulled in his apartment complex and proceeded to tell his mother that Matt was drunk in the car. Well, we all know Michigan weather, and it was 15 below zero that night. His mom is also an addict, and she told him to put a blanket over Matt, and we'll see him in the morning. when they came out in the morning to check on Matt, he was gone. He had passed away in the night. I was working in orthopedic nursing at the time, and someone came back to me and said, "Mary, there's 2 detectives here. The detectives need to talk to you." And, I was thinking it was one of my patients. It was something else was going on. And I went in this little room with them, and they proceeded to tell me, I just kept saying, "Where's my son? Where's my son? Where's my son?" Because I knew he did not come home that night. And they had told me that he passed away. And the detective, I'll never forget, the detective walked out of there and to one of my coworkers said, "Wow, I didn't think she'd react like that." What did she think a mother would react like? And it goes back to the stigma that was in 2012. There was such a big stigma about it, that these kids were junkies, they were bad kids, they were bad choices, they were just bad people. And it was not the case. Matthew cannot be defined by his addiction. He was, he had a heart, he was a funny kid, a loving kid, and everybody really took the low road and said, it's one person's problem. Superintendent of the school said, "That's not our problem, it's one person's problem, that you deal with that," and would not give us any support. Nobody wanted to talk to us. It was always the elephant in the room. And then, so they ended up prosecuting or bringing in the kid that injected him, and he was brought up on charges for lying to the police, telling him that he was only intoxicated instead of that he had injected him with heroin. And so he helped them to get the dealer, and they ended up catching the dealer, and we had a federal trial. And again, the courtroom on their side was packed full, 100 people, and on our side there were just a few of us. Again, because of that stigma, nobody wanted to be involved with us because we had that kid that did that thing, and nobody wanted to be a part of it. But I recall looking across the room, and throughout the week of the trial, there sat a mother on the other side, the mother of this dealer, and the dealer was only 20 years old. And she too was dealing with a lot of grief, only a different way. I had my grief because my son was dead, and my family had to endure this trial and go through all the nitty-gritty details of it. But there was also another mother there who was in a lot of grief, and we embraced and we talked. But her son ended up getting five guilty sentences, the first one being mandatory life in prison, no parole, for wrongful death of my son. And some people said, do you feel justice in that? Was that a good thing? And not really, because another mother is without her son. Yes, he's off the streets and he's not going to hurt anybody else, but she didn't intentionally raise a drug dealer or somebody who would do that. So it had both pros and cons to that. But life went on, and it was a journey of grief and ups and downs. I continued to work at my job as an orthopedic nurse, and probably in about 2015, on Matt's 10-year anniversary, his friend that had injected him was out of prison or out of jail by then, and I texted him on the anniversary, which was December 15th of Matt's 10-year anniversary of his death. And I just said, I forgive you. I'm letting this go. I hope you're doing well. I hope your life is well. And, I know you'll never forget Matt, and Matt will always be your friend. I know that. And that was in December of 2015, I believe. And February 2016, this young man overdosed on heroin and died. And you might wonder why I have this with me. This is a Christmas present. Matt died 10 days before Christmas. And I had bought this present, and it sits in my closet every day. It's collected quite a bit of dust, and I figure the dust is okay because that just reminds me every day that I don't have Matt with me. But at the same time, it sits in a place in my closet where the sun comes in and the sun shines on this present. And it tells me I have a new day to fight and to help other people and to plant a seed that nobody else and no other family has to go through what we went through.